This is video number 1 for a house in Radharc Na Baile, Drumshanbo in County Leitrim. Now, I'm just going to first of all go to a description of the property. So the property is a 1.5-story dwelling and it's timber framed construction. Now, I just want to briefly explain to you what a timber frame construction will look like. So I have, and I'm just going to briefly run through a few of these diagrams. These are basically just typical details of what the external wall of a timber frame dwelling will look like. So you can see it's cavity construction in that there's two leaves of wall. You have the inner leaf, you can see here, which is timber stud with insulation in between, and that's your inner leaf of your wall. And then you have a cavity here. You can see it's a 50mm cavity, quite a small cavity, and then the external leaf, which is masonry. Now, in this particular diagram, it's shown as brickwork, but in your house, it's blockwork, and it's been rendered. But that's the only difference. So it's the cavity, this cavity here, that's what stops the moisture ingress from externally. Moisture can migrate through cracks in the render in your finishes. It can come through, but it'll only get it this far before it hits the cavity, and then it'll flow down to the bottom of the cavity. Can't go any further. So this is modern construction. So that's basically what your timber frame, and timber frame has been used extensively in Ireland in the last 20 years, and it's not prone to any particular problems. It's a perfectly sound method of construction. So this is another diagram, another three-dimensional diagram showing you typical makeup of a timber frame construction. The inner leaf here is basically built with here you see the timber studs, and then an OSB board. You can see the OSB board is then fixed to the side of the timber studs to give them a kind of a to stiffen them up, to give them a lateral stability, so that they don't let's say distort out of shape. It gives it a stiffness. And you can go through that diagram at your leisure, but that's basically what your external leaf is going to look like. And again, it's brickwork in the external brickwork shown in this diagram, but in your particular property it's not brickwork, it's rendered blockwork. Now, this is a two-dimensional drawing, so a section through what your external leaf will look like. There again, that's your timber frame there. They've actually shown the insulation here instead of the timber. There's your 50mm cavity, quite a small cavity, and then again it's shown as brickwork, but yours is blockwork and is rendered. That up there is a cavity barrier. That's basically to prevent fire spread. I have another section here of, this is more like what you've got, I suppose, in that your timber frame here, whereas in this one he has shown it as blockwork. And that's just a section through where the radon sump has been added in. There's your cavity. The rainwater comes down, falls to the cavity, and then it's pushed out by your DPC. And the last diagram that I just want to go through here, because this might be a question that would come up for you. You might have noticed in the property there are a series of very small external vents in the wall, in the masonry wall. You'll see a series of them along the bottom and along the top, and you might have wondered what they're for. And basically they are to allow air circulation through the cavity. Now, you don't get these kind of vents. That's the vent there. You don't get these kind of vents on, let's say, if you had a masonry structure where you have the external leaf was masonry, then you had a cavity, and then the internal leaf was masonry. You wouldn't have these vents. You wouldn't need them. The only reason you need them is because you have timber here, and timber has to be ventilated. So this cavity has to be ventilated so that any condensation that forms or any dampness that gets in here can dry out and evaporate, and it keeps the timber safe. It keeps the timber safe and free from decay and rot. And some people paint over the vents, so just to be careful to keep those vents open. They are actually performing a function, and the reason you have those vents is because it's a timber frame dwelling. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move on now to, I went on to Leitrim County Council's website and I had a look at I always do this just as a matter of course, just to see if they have any plans digitally, and they do. So there is that's your planning file number. The most recent planning file number for the site was 10137. That's it there, and they have the drawings for your house are there. They have scanned them in and they have kept a digital version online. So I was able to go online on the website and download these. Now they're reasonable quality, you can read them, but if you want to get a better quality, you can go in and look at the paper copies of these drawings on the county council. They'd have a small fee, about 30 or 40 quid, if you want to go in and just take a copy of the drawings and keep them for your own records. They won't have digital copies, but they'll have paper copies. Now the text is backwards on this one. It's because basically they have there's a number of houses on the plot that are the same, but some of them are handed versions of the other. So I had to mirror this drawing to match what your drawing is, because the plan they had was similar but it was mirrored, so I had to mirror this. So that's why all the text is backwards. But that's basically your ground floor layout, and showing you the external cavity wall. So I always include these for the sake of completeness. If you're ever doing any work in the future, or if you're ever doing any extension work, it's handy to have the drawings. So that's why I include it. Your house is shown as house type 2 in the planning documents. So all of the extracts below are basically just, this is the first floor plan. Again, the text is backwards. This is the front elevation. I didn't include the text. The text is over here. I cut it off because it was all backwards anyway. So that's your front elevation, your side elevation, your rear elevation showing the balcony, and then this is, like, some of these drawings are not great quality. You often find that with scans, that they just don't get great quality, but you can get better quality drawings if you go in and look at the paper copies in the planning file in the office, in Leitrim County Council office. That's your section through showing your stairs. And let me see. So these are the engineer's details, the engineer who designed who did the drawing. So if you ever want to get a digital copy of the drawings, let's say, for example, if you're doing any extension work or for whatever reason, if you contact Leak Slip Engineering Designs, they will probably, for a small fee, give you a copy of the drawings. I mean, they will have them on file anyway. So if you ever want to get them, you should just contact them, and they should give them to you. And these are a copy of the notes from the drawings, just telling you the build-up of the floors, the build-up of the wall, the build-up of the roof construction, and it's all fairly standard. There's nothing abnormal about it. And again, this second page here is more notes about your the plumbing, the heating, the internal joinery. It's not very legible. Now, the next one that I want to go through, this is basically an extract from the website landdirect.ie. You can see here www.landdirect.ie. Now, basically, this website is to do with the sale of land. So I normally go onto this website just to look at the plot and to confirm that the plot is as shown on the ground, that it matches up, that it looks reasonable. Now, it's difficult for me to do that in this case because it seems to be like, that's your property there. You can see that's the outline of your property there. And at the minute, it's all shown as belonging to the one person. All this plot, all the way down here, is shown as being under the same ownership. It's all under the same folio number. So I'm not sure what's going on there. You know, it might be in the process of being changed. If a lot of these plots are being sold off individually, you know, it might be in the process of being changed. This one here, that's the very end house there. That's the only one that's slightly different. That seems to have its own plot. And the other thing I was going to point out was that I'm sure you know this already, but these houses here on this second half of the estate here, they're all semi-detached. They're all council houses. Apart from the last two are actually standalone dwellings. They're not council houses. But the rest of these houses are all council houses. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 council houses there. And all of the rest of these up here then are standalone dwellings. They're not council houses, they're private ownership. And okay, so if I go on, so I'll just this is just the same diagram, just zoomed in. So I can't really check the plot very because it's all kind of all one great big plot, but the boundaries that are shown here seem to match up with what's there on site. Your plot stops here, so that the boundaries that are shown here match up what's shown on site. I didn't take any measurements on it, but it does look and it seems to match up. There's no anomalies that I can see. This is a blow up of the notes from the landdirect.ie. So it gives the area in 1.98 hectares, and that's all of this area that's shown in pink. Now, so the summary, I'll just go through the summary here before I get into the specific details of the defects with your property. Your property, in summary, I've said it's above average. Now, well, I do quite an extensive survey, so you might look at my report and you might look at the list of defects and you might think, God, there's a lot of defects compared to any other report that I've seen. But don't let that fool you, because my reports are often very thorough and detailed. So because they're detailed, what I do is I'll give you an assessment of your property, a comparison compared to other buildings that are or other dwellings on sale on the market locally. If I was to pick, let's say, 100 dwellings and to survey 100 dwellings, and I was to arrange them all, yours would be above average, as in 2 steps above average. So yours would be in the between 70 to 80% percentile in terms of quality. So you know, there's no major problems with the house that I can see. They were all fairly small problems, so I would have no problem in you know, in saying go ahead with your purchase. Now I'm going to get into the specific defects for your property in the next video. So I'm going to stop here at the synopsis and I will continue on in video 2.